you regret saying that the Cambridge police acted stupidly?
You know, I have to say I'm surprised by the controversy surrounding my statement, because I think it was a pretty straightforward commentary that you probably don't need to handcuff a guy, a middle-aged man who uses a cane, who's in his own home. I have extraordinary respect for the difficulties of the jobs that police officers do. As I said, them responding was exactly the right thing to do. And my suspicion is that words were exchanged between the police officer and Mr. Gates, and that everybody should have just settled down and cooler heads should have prevailed.
Do you still think the Cambridge police acted stupidly?
Well, you know, Terry, I think this is a classic example at a time when we're struggling about healthcare, energy. We've got two wars going on, that issues like this get elevated in ways that probably don't make much sense.
This story is showing no signs of slowing down. As you know, Professor Henry Louis Gates has been threatening for days to sue. Now an attorney for Sergeant James Crowley is saying that Crowley, too, is considering a lawsuit for defamation. The allies of Sergeant James Crowley are pushing back hard. From the nation's chiefs of police, who issued a statement saying they're disappointed in President Obama, to the commissioner of the Cambridge Police, who said the president's comments left his force deflated.
This department is deeply pained and takes its professional pride seriously.
The Cambridge Police acted stupidly in arresting somebody when there was already proof that they were in their own home.
As for Sergeant Crowley, he said the president was way off base, and he defended his decision to arrest Henry Louis Gates for disorderly conduct. Gates maintains Crowley was disrespectful and refused to reveal his badge number or his name when Gates threatened to file a complaint.
There was a lot of yelling. There was references to my mother. Mr. Gates was given plenty of opportunity to stop what he was doing. He didn't. He acted very irrational, and he controlled the outcome of that event.
Sergeant Crowley is rejecting Professor Gates's demand for an apology and fighting Gates's portrayal of him as a racist.
This man clearly was a rogue policeman.
Sergeant Crowley pointed out that he was the one who tried to revive Boston Celtics basketball star Reggie Lewis when he died of a heart attack in 1993.
He was in fact not conscious and in full cardiac arrest. I had no pulse and no evidence of respiration.
Also, the head of a local police academy said Sergeant Crowley was handpicked by a black police official to teach a course in racial profiling. Even Bill Cosby weighed in, telling a local Fox station he was shocked.
People who have not been there, people who don't know, are beginning to have their own personal feelings, which they weren't there.
One more note here from Cambridge. While the police commissioner here has said that he's defending Sergeant Crowley's decision to arrest Professor Gates, he's also said that he's putting together a special panel to investigate this incident.
Do you regret saying that the Cambridge police acted stupidly?
You know, I have to say I'm surprised by the controversy surrounding my statement, because I think it was a pretty straightforward commentary that you probably don't need to handcuff a guy, a middle-aged man who uses a cane, who's in his own home. I have extraordinary respect for the difficulties of the jobs that police officers do. As I said, them responding was exactly the right thing to do. And my suspicion is that words were exchanged between the police officer and Mr. Gates, and that everybody should have just settled down and cooler heads should have prevailed.
Do you still think the Cambridge police acted stupidly?
Well, you know, Terry, I think this is a classic example at a time when we're struggling about healthcare, energy. We've got two wars going on, that issues like this get elevated in ways that probably don't make much sense. I think that it doesn't make sense, with all the problems that we have out there, to arrest a guy in his own home if he's not causing a serious disturbance.
What I did was right. I have nothing to apologize for.
Mr. Gates was given plenty of opportunity to stop what he was doing. He didn't. He acted very irrational, and he controlled the outcome of that event.
There was no banter back and forth, no yelling back and forth. There were police officers, myself included, trying to calm the professor, trying to bring this situation to a resolution. I'm still just amazed that somebody of his level of intelligence could stoop to such a level and berate me, accuse me of being a racist or racial profiling, and then speaking about my mother. It's just beyond words. I treat everybody the same. I think, that's what I try to do. That's what I have a track record of doing for the past 16 and a half years as a police officer. Again, I think it's just regrettable that the situation has gotten to this point. I have replayed the incident in my mind many times, as I'm sure Professor Gates has, and I'm guessing that he would probably respond the same way I am responding. I regret, and I have, I won't say apologize, I regret that I have put the city and the Cambridge Police Department in the position that they now have to defend something like this.
So there are basically two issues here. What the police did in that situation, and then what the president did thereafter. So to button this up, let's bring in NPR news analyst Juan Williams. Juan, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Can you hear me, Juan?
Yeah, good morning, Chris.
Great, there you go. Did not want you silenced on this. So let's deal with the main issue that hasn't been spoken to too much here. Do you think the police would have acted the same way if Gates had been a white man?
Well, I don't know the Cambridge police intimately. I live in Washington, D.C. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up in Brooklyn during the 60s, and I had sort of a tense relationship with police, especially white police, as a young black kid. But here in Washington, I've had situations where my alarm has gone off at the house, the police come, they want ID, they literally check the house because they want to make sure that there's nobody hiding in the house telling me to get the police away, threatening my family or something. And it can become tedious. You feel as if they're in your space. But, the fact is, in this situation, that's their job, and they have to worry that someone is there to attack them. And my concern about the president speaking out here is I'm not sure he saw the police report where you can read that Gates had become rather aggressive with the cop, as the cop you just heard talking about the cop's mother, bringing up the issue of race. The cop was responding to a report of a break-in at the house, and by Gates' own account, he tried to force his way into his own house, and the house had been broken into previously.
You don't see this. This doesn't scream at you as a case of racial profiling.
Not at all. It's not a case of racial profiling. And, as someone who's been stopped and, as a black person in America, I have a very deferential approach to cops. I don't speak to them in aggressive tones. And I teach my kids, if you're reaching for your wallet, tell the cop you're reaching for your wallet. It's just a matter. Cops can be very prickly, Chris. And especially with a black guy.
I know it well. I, too, treat the police with extreme deference because that's the way you're raised to be. Let me ask you this. What is the president's right move in this situation after getting out in front of it? Did he get out too far? What should he do now?
He got out way too far. As you heard, even Bill Cosby, and I might say the cop says he's an Obama supporter. These people feel like, the president has gone way, way too far without having looked at the police report, without knowing the facts of the case. And so I think what he now has to do is walk it back and say, I spoke out of turn here. Skip Gates, Professor Henry Louis Gates is a friend of mine. And I was reacting in support of a friend and aware of larger racial issues in the society, but it really doesn't specifically apply to this case, which is not about racial profiling.
We can have a debate back and forth about